So this month we are talking about uh, narcissism, and this is the part of the negative course. I will talk a little bit about the essay that I wrote on narcissism and non-therapy for the narcissism. In general, what amazes me, what I think is amazing about this concept, the way it functions in pop psychology, and this is the place where it originally originated and basically exists now. Not originally, but now it's the concept of pop psychology. It belongs to it. So the amazing thing about it is that it can be defined through the opposite of what it is. And it can be seen as not the self-love, not when one is full of oneself, but the opposite, when one is hollow and when one is empty inside. And so it's not inflated self-worth. It's rather the compensation, the appearance in order to compensate for this inner emptiness or absence or self-absence. And so it is this compensation that appears as fullness of oneself, as one is full of themselves. And this compensation is something that we find irritating, that we don't like, and we call narcissism. But basically, within narcissism, it's something opposite to narcissism, not the fullness of oneself, but the emptiness, the absence of oneself. And this desperate attempt to conceal the emptiness, it's what appears as fullness, that one is full of themselves. And there is this compulsion to be seen, to impress other, to exist within the gaze of the other. And narcissistic feature is when we try to exist in someone else's eyes. So it's about this gaze of the other. So narcissistic person is embedded in the society, in the bond with the other, as existing in their eyes, staging maybe even performance for them. And this is precisely because why this is happening the way it's comprehended in psychology, the narcissism, the attempt to endlessly compensate oneself, because they try to compensate, but this it never lands. Like there is no, it works like the container. There's nothing there to contain self-worth. There's nowhere, no place for the feeling of selfhood to land on and to hold on there. So it's about the gaze of the other that the narcissistic person is aiming to exist. It's the performance, rather the performance of selfhood stage for others' eyes, the desperate performance. Sometimes it's mimicry, like it's a borrowed gesture, so borrowed identities that don't fit and they then feel uncanny. And something that doesn't belong to them, but nonetheless they're staging and they're performing and they're making it part of their performance of their selfhood. And it's this performance is actually a very tempting thing, because I think no one can love the way narcissists can love, just precisely because it's performance, it's stage, and it's the whole show, because it's something staged for you, precisely to impress you or to remain within your gaze or to maybe manipulate you in order to exist in your eyes, in order to kind of parasite on your gaze, trying to impress you, trying to remain within within you. So even there's something I wrote about this listening. Even when they listen, it's not that there's someone there who is listening to you. It's rather, it feels like they are listening, but it's rather that it turns out to be manipulation. It's turned out to be a part of the performance to figure out your needs or your desires, maybe, in order to stage this performance for you to remain in your emotions, to remain in your mind, to for this performance to exist within your gaze. And this is why they would say that you need to run away from this person, because from narcissists, because there's nothing you can do to fix them. Sometimes it feels like you can love person or cherish or care for the person enough to for them to stop performing their selfhood and actually be someone. But basically, we know that it always fails, and this is how the person functions. There is like it even feels fitting to describe them as those lost souls or empty shell. There is no one in except for no one within except for this the tactic, the performance, the certain stage manipulative in this way performance played for you. And it's interesting to think about this perception of it's interesting to think about this perception of the self that is empty in terms of existential philosophy and negative psychoanalysis, because it sounds like, well, what we do normally in pop psychology world. And when talking about narcissism, it's a kind of critical term. It's the bad word when we describe, like the word that we use to describe bad type of people. But strangely, even I, like this part where I was describing them, it sounds like those are horrible people that you need to run away from. But nonetheless, if you think about them from position of existentialism, from the position of negative psychoanalysis, where we are all hollow inside, where we are all those black holes that there is nothing substantially at the core of us, and all of our identities is always imaginary stage, and they collapse in the face of the core of who we are, this nothingness, or being towards death in Heideggerian terms, that basically structures us, structures any of our identity. So from this position, and Heidegger wouldn't approve this comprehension, this claim, from this position, narcissist is actually the one, like this uncanny outline of self, someone who is performing selfhood instead of being self, might be actually the closest person to be, to embody this being towards death, the nothingness. But nonetheless, this is uncanny formulation, because for me, this formulation of the human subject is the formulation that I actually like. And if narcissist fits the most for this description, because for them, they kind of in intimate proximity to the emptiness of themselves. They cannot believe in their self. This is why they need to overcompensate and stage in this staging of who they are. So strangely, it might be the closest person to what Heidegger defines as even ethical ideal, to the Dasein that is existing towards its death, embracing the death of itself, the absence of itself. Just with narcissists, this the way they define in pop psychology, they don't have other choice because they don't believe in themselves from the beginning. They kind of in endless loop of losing their self of self. That's why they need to stage their self. That's why they need to perform their selfhood. But still, I think there is the difference between those people that I like, those people that I don't like, maybe. And there is maybe, but maybe we'll come back to it. Maybe this difference is actually still within narcissism. So let's first talk about narcissism and empath, because this is normally how we distinguish people. We think about empath in our psychologized society as better kind of people, or maybe even someone who is closer to ethical demands in current society, or even more desirable type of people. And narcissists are those are seen as those horrible opposite kind of people from whom empath tend to suffer. But I'm thinking that maybe it's more logical to think about them in symbiosis with each other, in tandem with each other. Also, from this perspective of being towards death, if we say that narcissist is actually closer to being towards death, to embracing inner nothingness, the structural absence of self, the lack that structures us, because they don't have other choice, they don't even have illusion, the stable illusion of their selfhood. So this is why this nothingness is always open to them. They're defined, more obviously defined by this nothingness. And from this perspective, empath people who are kind and who maybe have the uh, feeling of self and feeling of selfhood as they feel about themselves as someone kind, someone giving, understanding. So they have this illusion, stable instance of selfhood from which they can operate. But from the perspective of being towards death, where there is no selfhood and there is structurally what structures selfhood is the absence of any selfhood or just nothingness, we can say that their selfhood is also illusion. It's just more the one that they believe in more, or it's something less problematic for them. Maybe this is the illusion that they can maintain less problematically than narcissists. So they're both, in a way, horrible. And other horrible thing for me, an unfair thing, is that narcissists, no matter how horrible they could be, there is something, it's normally connected to the absence of love in early childhood. Of course, it's the mother who is always in the wrong. But and this is why you can never compensate, can never kind of transform narcissists in function in the opposite way to install through love or care or therapy. You can never install this stable illusion of selfhood because it's kind of lost for them forever, and this is how they operate. But what is unfair is that if this is so, if this is kind of a broken human being, the way we understand how human beings supposed to be, if it's something from the beginning that happened and something you cannot restore, then what happens with empath is that their selfhood is, and good selfhood, like the feeling that they're a good person, the feeling of good selfhood from within which they operate is which means that they were loved or something as children. But we can say that this is also illusion that was more maybe safely installed into them. And from this perspective, it's also interesting to see how they operate with each other, those pairs of narcissists and empaths, who I think should be discussed in their coexistence in symbiosis, because they don't exist maybe with each other. Because the one who is saving the empaths needs someone to save, even though they're failing to save narcissists, but they're still existing in this tandem, in symbiosis with each other. And pop psychology and my mom would claim that narcissist comes in your life as kind of karmic lesson to teach you something, not sure what, but I think that it's even more tragic than that. I think that both come, this very symbiosis is tragic. It both come to teach both narcissist and empath a tragic lesson of the impossibility of kind of impossibility of selfhood and impossibility of certain connections. So they both fail in this relationship, and this relationship opens up a void that they both represent, just from different sides. So something that I wrote is that, well, while narcissist breaks again this illusion that they can inhabit someone's gaze, that they can parasite and on someone's emotions, someone's gaze, and exist, install themselves there safely, and through this install their selfhood and operate there, they fail because there is this void, internal void, that can never be filled. So that through empath, the listening, empathic empath, they still discover this void within themselves that can never be filled through operating within the gaze of the other person. And for empath, it might be karmic, so to say, tragic lesson in impossibility of saving, of creating or generating someone through love, So they both fail in the same abyss, the same, but from the opposite sides. They both maybe learn the same lesson of impossibility of love, or some kind of love as a failure. And I'm also thinking that from this perspective of narcissist as the type of person that is the closest one to embracing being towards death, the inner structure nothingness, or the inner structure void, just with the tiny difference that also one should embrace the comedy of the whole thing, of a comedy of impossibility, instead of just despair of clinging, of trying to impress, of trying to be someone. Uh, it would be maybe it's not about trying not to be narcissist or changing people from being narcissist, but being more maybe even narcissistic, if you think about narcissism as something closer to this being towards death, being more narcissistic in a way that embracing the impossibility and the comedy of trying to be someone. So even being even maybe closer to the void that narcissistic person is trying to compensate for. And similar thing for empath, like embracing the comedy of impossibility of being empath, of being the one who is saving, of being the one who is creating through the presence, of the one who is rescuing the other. And in this mutual failure, the comedy of mutual failure is actually where they come together. They're not different. They're both jokes. That like both types of people, empath and narcissistic people might actually come together in this impossibility of being, of trying to be who they are, because it's both things. It's just comedy. And the other thing I'm developing in this essay is the idea of narcissistic culture, a culture that cultural, so to say, narcissism, because it's strange to me how our culture functions. It feels like it demands to be us to be a narcissist first. First, it demands us to be narcissists, and then it stigmatizes us for being narcissist, which is like great. So narcissist is demanded in our culture because we supposed to be someone, and being someone, it always mean pretend to be someone. We forced to mediate our relationship through presenting our worth, that we are someone, and there is no space within this narcissistic or narcissist producing culture to be no one. And so we try to impress each other. We don't never come to each other, never meet each other directly, but always mediating through different things, trying to impress the other, trying to present oneself as someone of worth, like presenting through our achievements or affiliation or whatever we have. Like we need to construct this selfhood to be presentable. And through this presentation of ourselves, we communicate with each other, never directly, but also indirectly, always indirectly, within this narrative of who we are in all spheres of life, in professional spheres where they're creating our CV and we need something to list there, or when we're creating our dating profiles and we need to present our narrative as we are present ourselves as dateable people. So we already disguised, we already wearing some costumes when we talking to each other. And this is how we evaluate and how we meet each other, through this mediators, through stage performances, through the structures, which are always in order to secure a position in a society, not in order to make contact, not in order to for some kind of proximity, intimacy, but in order to secure position, which means that this is a manipulative thing. The culture is structured in such a way that we need to manipulate, exist in the gaze of the other, to impress other, to present ourselves as someone's to impress. And there is no space not to do that, because once you do it, once you present yourself as insignificant, as no one, it's high risk that you'll be taken advantage of, instead of someone else will react in a similar way, presenting themselves as also no one. But and instead, it's more chances that someone will just take advantage of your nothingness. To so Something I wrote is that we exist. To exist, we must impress each other. Put certain things on our CV, on our dating profiles, and we never approach one another from the space of no oneness, and we meet each other as someone's, as the stage someoneness, which for me is a horrible thing, because I believe in those lines in the structural lag. So this S can represent the subject. And for me, what we hold in common is the nothingness. There's something that connects us within us. So the subject is divided, but also in between us is the structural lag. And we forced to cover it with fantasy. In this narcissistic comprehension, the fantasy might be that we are someone, or we take certain roles, and we meet through this fantasy, through those roles, the roles that we play, through our costumes that we wear, and something. But for me, the genuine meeting is the meeting when the nothingness, when we share the nothing of who we are, when we don't wear costumes, so to say, when the fantasy fails working. And I think we feel it in proximate, in relationship of proximity, where we can truly be close. I think only when we are without. When we are no ones, when we represent this inner nothingness. And this is what also called unconditional love, because condition is always supposed that you need something to love for. There's supposed to be condition, and this fantasy is a condition. So the unconditional love, and love as such, might be only through through embracing each other, no oneness. And because of that, my conclusion is kind of failed in advance dream of creating a space or alternative to. Yeah, let's first talk about the therapy as something that doesn't work. So this is our society, the society that is therapeutic. Even concept narcissism is a part of the therapeutic psychologized language. And therapy is problematic for me because I think it produces narcissism, and even if because in therapy you need to, especially in this conventional types of therapy, maybe less in psychoanalysis, but still you create a self-narrative. The therapist is your guide in helping you to create the narrative, in introspection, going within yourself and discover whatever you true self, or boosting your self-esteem or something like it. So it just means that it helps you to participate in this narcissistic culture, to acquire certain manipulative skills, how to manipulate your self-representation in the eyes of the other. And therapies would admit that it doesn't work with narcissism. Conventional therapy doesn't work with, it fails to transform narcissists into non-narcissists. But there's the deeper conflict here. Of course, it fails to cure narcissism because it implicitly produces narcissism, or at least participates in a society with the structural part of the society that is producing or demanding us to be narcissists. And so I'm thinking that maybe therapy doesn't make you less of an asshole, but more sophisticated and socially sanctioned one, because it helps you. It doesn't say so, but it helps you to to develop certain self narrative and way of operating with other people. That is the part of this culture that demands narcissism. So for me, the dream would be to create the failed dream that is failed in advance would be to create alternative space, not therapeutic space, but maybe rather opposite to therapy in its conventional sense, because it functions in order to produce narcissistic features, in order to for us to exist in this narcissist demanding culture. The alternative would be what I called asylum for the fucked ups and shelter for losers and failures, which just means that the space where we can come together through not embracing the lack within us, our no oneness, to meet as no ones, instead of being mediated through the presentation of someoneness. And so that would be road that would be society not of self-help but rather something like non-self-help, because this non-negating self and non-help maybe, because help in the conventional, if help in conventional therapy produces narcissism and it's help to basically be a narcissist, be someone, then it's a non-self and non-help, not non-help, the opposite of help. So it's rather this space where we can hold the no oneness in common, which is actually always the only thing that we hold in common. And when we truly come together without pretending to be someone. And maybe this group is one of my attempts to do it. All right, I will stop recording and stop sharing. Hi.